Hello, my name is Eve Davis, and I am the AmeriCorps member for MountainTrue's Western region in 2023 to 2024. And today I'll be presenting about non-native invasive plants and our efforts to remove them in Jackson County. So over here to the right, I have two maps. This highlighted portion over here is Jackson County, and just for reference, Buncombe County is right here. Within Jackson County, over the past 2 years, we've been working primarily on the Jackson County Greenway, which is in Cullowhee and about 5 minutes away from Western Carolina University. And we've just recently begun working at Pinnacle Park, which is in Sylva. So to start off, I will go over some non-native invasive plant characteristics. They are opportunistic, meaning that we find them primarily in disturbed ecosystems where there might have been deforestation or a lot of human development going on, and these plants can find gaps in that ecosystem and take advantage of that. They also have high prolific rates of reproduction, so they can produce lots of seeds and lots of berries that can either fall to the forest floor and sprout from there, or they can be whisked away by birds and other wildlife to be spread elsewhere. They are also very resilient. They resist attempts at removal and will retaliate by sending resprouts that can occur either above ground or below ground. So if someone were to cut the stem, they can send resprouts from that cut stump. Or if we were to pull out a plant and the part of the roots are left in the ground, they can even send resprouts from those remaining roots. So these plants are also very competitive and will monopolize on sunlight, water, space, and nutrients in the soil. And in this way, they can really push out native plants and decrease biodiversity. These plants are also left unchecked because they are non-native and lack predators in this area. So their population levels can just shoot off and get out of hand really easily. And so now we'll start talking about all the plants that we're finding on Jackson County Greenway. We're typically seeing Oriental bittersweet, Japanese honeysuckle, English ivy, Chinese privet, burning bush, autumn olive, and Multiflora Rose. And so we'll talk about the habits and characteristics of these specific plants. Oriental bittersweet is often compared to kudzu. Some people call it the kudzu of the north, just because of how pervasive it is. In the field, we're looking for features like the bark. The bark is very distinctive because it has these spots all over it. And these are lenticels, and they're kind of comparative to stomata on leaves. They're there to facilitate gas exchange for photosynthesis. They also have this defining coiling characteristic. So they'll coil around trees and even around themselves, as you can see in this top right picture. And it'll girdle. You can see that in this bottom left picture here. You can see how it's girdled that trunk of the tree. And this plant can produce so much biomass that it really weighs down the tree and cuts off light to understory plants. And you can also see here in the bottom right how much seeds are produced in one plant. So it can really spread around pretty fast. Next one we'll talk about is honeysuckle, Japanese honeysuckle. I think most people in the southeast of the US can recall memories of this plant. I remember that when I was a kid, I would take the leaf or the flowers and I would eat all the nectar out of them. These are pretty threatening plants because they can form dense ground cover and then climb up trees and girdle them just as Oriental bittersweet does. And you can see how much biomass is here on this bottom left picture and just how effective it could be at cutting out sun to other plants. Another common one is English ivy, and most people know what this one is. You can often find this plant still in the gardening section at Lowe's, which is surprising because it is invasive, and I'm not sure if most people know not to plant it outside. Hopefully this presentation can help spread the word to not do that. This plant is extremely tough because it can sprout just from leaf trimmings or leaf fragments. And so when you're removing this plant, you really want to make sure that all of the vegetation that you get is destroyed. Don't leave anything around because there could be potential resprouts from that. And so this is similar to honeysuckle in that it invades ground floor as well as trees. My coworker, Tony, and I, we were out in the field and we came across a huge swath of English ivy. And there were just these huge curtains coming down from the tree, just hanging off of these poor limbs and adding so much weight. And that really leaves the tree, kind of vulnerable to winds and storms. And it risks the limbs falling off. But it also, because of how they wrap around all the limbs, it prevents photosynthesis from occurring. And so the host tree can struggle with this plant. Another one is Chinese privet. And in the field, we're looking for these ovular, oppositely arranged leaves. And these shrubs can get up to 15 feet tall, and they form these huge thickets. This one is pretty important when you're like removing it. They tend to send resprouts year after year. So you really have to keep on top of these types of plants, or else they will fight back and they want to stay. If allowed to mature and seed, these plants can really change the whole ecosystem and form a carpet of privet. Another one is burning bush. This one is pretty popular among gardeners. It's a very beautiful ornamental. If I didn't know that it was invasive, I would totally go out and buy like 5 and just plant them everywhere. They are spread by birds because they feed on them, and they form these super dense outcompeting stands in forests. As you can see in this bottom left picture, it's completely taken over this forest, and all the biodiversity is just depleting because of a lack of space and sunlight. And the next one we'll talk about is autumn olive. This is a shrub that is very fast growing, very much overcrowding everything around it. When we're in the field, we're looking for these under leaves that are silver. The top leaves are dark green, but then there's this film of silver underneath the leaves. These are also spread by birds, and they're especially threatening because they're drought tolerant and flood tolerant. And so they can really adapt to a lot of different ecosystems. And this last one is Multiflora Rose. This is like my arch nemesis when we're out in the field. I'm always drawn to like killing this plant. It's the plant that fights back because of all these thorns that it has. And so this one tends to form these arching canes. They're just like trampling everything. They're growing on top of everything. They're dispersed by animals. And a shocking statistic is that a single plant can produce up to 2 million seeds a year. So they're extremely good at spreading out. Okay, so now we'll talk about the removal process. We'll either do root pull or cut stump treatment. And root pull is typically when there's like a smaller plant that's just a sapling, not very developed, and we'll just rip it out of the ground. For larger, more mature plants, though, we'll do a cut stump treatment, which includes cutting the plant below the first node on the stem, a node being a little knob on the side of the stem that is typically where the first resprout would occur if you leave it there. So you want to cut below that just so that the resprout is less likely to happen. And then we'll take these dauber bottles and we'll paint the herbicide triclopyr on them. This is a systemic herbicide that when the plant is exposed to it, it'll spread the herbicide throughout every part of the plant. And in this way, it effectively kills the plant and prevents resprout from occurring. So we'll use these dauber bottles specifically because they are a way to localize the application and eliminates the need for spraying. And so that way, it's a lot safer for the applicator, the person applying the herbicide, and you avoid spreading the herbicide to other vegetation, and that's a good thing. So now I'll talk about the timeline of our efforts at the Jackson County Greenway. So as I said before, we've worked on this area for 2 years now. The AmeriCorps member before me, her name was Darby Stipe, and she was here from 2022 to 2023. She created this extensive inventory, as you can see to the left of the screen, which basically is a map downloaded from AllTrails, and then parts of the trail are like labeled, and each number on the trail corresponds to this paper that has these invasive species listed, so that we know exactly like what part of the trail and what we're seeing on that part of the trail. And so after she created that inventory, she coordinated 3 non-native invasive plant work days on the Greenway. And so she had one in January, one in March, and then April. And then thankfully during my term, I met with a woman named Sunny Himes, and she is a professor at Western Carolina University. And she has this app that she uses to track invasives, and it's called Avanza. It takes GPS coordinates, and so you can map exactly where on the map or on the Greenway you're finding these plants. And then you can color coordinate them to what plants that you want them to stand for. And so this is my inventory that I created. It's really helpful for when we're planning our work days because we can see like what pockets of the Greenway we want to prioritize for the next work day. And it's been super helpful for that. At the end of 2023, I coordinated 2 work days, one in November and one in December. And then so far this year, we've had a work day in February and then one in March. And just last week, we had our first work day at Pinnacle Park on March 27th. And this is our biologist, Josh Kelly, and he's talking to one of our volunteers in this picture. And so our efforts going forward this year with Jackson County, we have our last community non-native invasive work day on Jackson County Greenway on April 12th. And then April 17th, we have our second work day at Pinnacle Park. And then on April 27th, we have a work day on Worry Hut Road, which is this little dot right here in red. And then May 8th, our third work day at Pinnacle Park. And then May 13th, as a part of my AmeriCorps Project Conserve service plan, I am in charge of coordinating a service learning day for my AmeriCorps cohort. I'll be kind of facilitating a work day at the Jackson County Greenway. And then we'll be having a little basket making using invasive vines workshop. So that'll be fun. We have a lot left to do. And then some statistics for the past 2 years. Darby, during her term, recruited 33 unique volunteers. And then so far in my term, we've recruited 50 more unique volunteers with a total of 83 volunteers recruited and almost 250 total hours volunteered over 8 work days. And so we're super thankful to all of our partners that help us with all this work. Mainspring Conservation Trust is a partner organization of ours, and they're located in Franklin, North Carolina. They tend to like help us out with these work days. They'll show up and pull some plants out with us and bring some tools that they share. And then Western Carolina University's Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning, they will advertise our work days for us to the student body and to faculty and staff and incentivize people to volunteer with us. So they've been a really great partner as well. And all of these other partners have been amazing. So yeah, that is non-native invasive plants and what we're doing in Jackson County. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you.